Well, good morning and welcome to a daily dose of good news for Thursday, May the 28th already. Can you believe it? First part of our good news today is taken from the book of Exodus, the 19th chapter, verses 1 to 9. On the third new moon, after the Israelites had gone out of the land of Egypt, on that very day, they came into the wilderness of Sinai. They had journeyed from Rephidim, entered the wilderness of Sinai, and camped in the wilderness. Israel camped there in front of the mountain. Then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain, saying, "Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and tell the Israelites, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you obey my voice and keep my covenant, you will be my treasures out of all the peoples. Indeed, the whole earth is mine, but you shall be for me a priestly kingdom and a holy nation. These are the words that you are to speak to the Israelites." So Moses came, summoned the elders of the people, and set before them all the words that the Lord had commanded him. The people all answered as one, "Everything that the Lord has spoken, we will do." Moses reported the words of the people to the Lord. Then the Lord said to Moses, "I am going to come to you in a dense cloud, in order that the people may hear when I speak with you, and so trust you ever after." Here ends the reading. Well, I guess that settles it. God says, "I am the one that has given you life and restored that life to you when times got hard. Now, if you will obey me fully and keep my covenant, you will be my treasured people." And God's people in unison declare, "We will do everything that the Lord has said." That settles it. And if that doesn't settle it, the next part of the story will settle it. The next part of the story, when the people will finally agree to obey the Lord fully, God invites Moses up on Mount Sinai and gets a little more explicit. He hands to Moses the 10 Commandments. Actually, he speaks to them, hands them later. He speaks to Moses the 10 Commandments, which God's treasured people will keep as a covenant. I'm wondering if you might try to remember those commandments with me this morning. Call them back on your own catechism instruction, perhaps. The first commandment, God alone is God. There'll be no others. Second, you shall not take the Lord's name in vain. Third, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Fourth, remember, honor your father and your mother. And the fifth, you shall not murder. The sixth, you shall not commit adultery. The seventh, you shall not steal. The eighth, and I wish this one were more pervasive across our culture right now, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. The ninth, you shall not covet your neighbor's house or your neighbor's material goods. And 10th, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife or living relationships. And after Moses comes down the mountain with those commandments from the Lord, he confirms with the people, here's the deal. This is what it means to keep God's covenant. And he declares all the commandments to the people, and in unison again they respond, everything that the Lord has said, we will do. That has to settle it. Or does it? For just as soon as Moses goes up again back into the mountain in order to get a tablet-friendly version of the commandments that would be etched by God's own finger, while he's away, Aaron and all of God's people gather their jewelry, smelt all the gold, and begin to worship the golden calf, hedging their bets on this God who promises to treasure them so. It turns out the faithfulness of God's people is not entirely steadfast. And it's not entirely steadfast because God, in God's wisdom, has created us in the image of God with free will and the opportunity for loving freely with all the joy and vulnerability built in. God has created us in the image of God rather than, say, creating us in the image of a virus programmed to respond in a specific way under specific circumstances without any individual will or ability to choose a different response. God chose the more loving and challenging way with us, those of us whom he treasures. Not according to our faithfulness, though, but according to God's faithfulness, as declared by our psalm reading that is also appointed for this day, number 33, verses 20 to 22. Our soul waits for the Lord. The Lord is our help and shield. Our heart is glad in the Lord because we can trust in the Lord's holy name. Let your steadfast love, O Lord, be upon us, even as we put our hope in you. Amen. Well, I continue to pray that you and yours are doing well and that we are supporting those who are in need of that care. Did have opportunity to visit a bit with Carol Stewart this week through the window of her apartment. She readily recognized me, very agitated that I can't be with her, that she can't be with me, and we can't communicate more. But we did visit and share the Lord's Prayer through the screen. Continued prayers for Carolyn Kramer as she recovers from her knee surgery as well. We will be today distributing with our weekly newsletter the first draft of our plans for gathering anew. These have been devised by our parish health team, all so that we might gather again as soon and as safely as possible, guided by the best medical and scientific and health department and regulatory input that they have been able to find. So we invite you to take a look at that. In that, you will see an opportunity to offer feedback via a Survey Monkey or a telephone call. Anyone that would rather call and offer that information is welcome to do so. Or on a Survey Monkey, how you find the plans, any questions you might have. There will also be opportunity for you to indicate at what times during the week you might be interested and available to worship. One of the almost certain realities is that we'll have to gather in groups smaller than we are accustomed to gathering, maybe up to 50 persons at a maximum. In order to accommodate as many people as possible, then we are considering a variety of times throughout the week that might be convenient for people to attend. So your input in that regard will be helpful as well. You'll also see in that weekly newsletter the report of the congregational meeting and the vote that was taken with regard to the payroll protection plan funds that the church has received. That proposal did pass by 175 votes yes, 5 votes no, and 4 people abstaining. We'll have some context for our acceptance and use of that money in the newsletter. I would invite you to take a look at that, as it is a rather extraordinary circumstance and not a matter to be taken lightly for us as we continue to trust God to provide all the resources that are necessary for us to accomplish the mission that God gives to us. So take a look there, and as you have any questions, I would invite your contact as well. We'd be glad to talk with anything more about that. I think that's it for today. Enjoy your day. We'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.